Hey everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, Baker. Let's talk about stuff. So on Thursday, that the MLB looks like they reached a new collective bargaining agreement. So I saw that. I just wanted to kind of bring this up real quick because I thought this was kind of interesting. So this is ended a 99-day owner-imposed lockout in the MLB. This was actually, from what I could find in my research, this was the second longest work stoppage in the league's history. So basically, after this, now players are expected to report to their respective training facilities on Sunday, March 13th, and the first exhibition game will be roughly 4 to 5 days after that. And opening day is now going to be April 7th. Looks like there were a couple of changes I saw under the new CBA. The one that I kind of wanted to note that kind of caught my eye was that under the new CBA, the minimum salaries will begin at $700,000 in 2022 and rise to $780,000 for the final year of 2026. So it was a pretty large increase from the previous year. I can't remember how much it was, but yeah, $700,000 as a minimum salary. It's pretty crazy to think about. I'm not a giant baseball fan. I'm in Kansas City, so I follow the Royals here and there, but I'm kind of a bandwagon guy. I really only follow the Royals when they went to the World Series in 2015. So usually I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a bandwagon guy. So, but anyways, to get started today, welcome back everybody. So as promised, I have my review and my thoughts on the new Kingsman movie, starring Ray Fiennes. So, based on the Secret Service comic by Mark Miller of the same name, this released December 22nd, 2021 in the United States. The film was originally scheduled to release in November of 2019, but was pushed back multiple times due to COVID-19, as we all know happened with a lot of films at the time. Directed by Matthew Vaughn, who also directed the other Kingsman films, The Secret Service and Golden Circle. He also directed the two X-Men films, X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past. Future Past is one of my favorite of the X-Men films, and one of my favorite superhero films in general. Matthew Vaughn also wrote the screenplay for the movie along with Carl Gajusek. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Produced by Matthew Vaughn as well as David Reed and Adam Bowling. Production companies include Marv Studios and Cloudy Productions, distributed by 20th Century Fox. Large cast of really good actors and actresses in this movie. So it stars Ray Fiennes as Orlando Oxford, Gemma Arterton, Rhys Ifans, Matthew Good, Tom Hollander, Harris Dickinson, Daniel Bruhl, who you might remember from Inglourious Bastards, Jaimin Hansu, and Charles Dance, of course, who is Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. And one of my favorite actors around. Side note, not to get off track for too long, Tywin Lannister was one of my favorite characters in Game of Thrones. I know he's a bad guy, but I love a good bad guy. So, music by Matthew Margeson and Dominic Lewis. Cinematography was done by Ben Davis, who, again, kind of looked into this. He did the cinematography for Guardians of the Galaxy, The Eternals, and Doctor Strange. So, as of right now, there's no awards or accolades for this movie that I could find. However, it looks like the filmmakers are trying to get a nomination for Ben Davis for Best Cinematography in the For Your Consideration campaign. So, basically, to summarize the story very briefly, British aristocrat Orlando Oxford, played by Ray Fiennes, is trying to honor the memory of his late wife by protecting their son Conrad, played by Harris Dickinson. It's revealed that Fiennes has built his own spy agency to assist the British government. Near the beginning of the Great War, or otherwise known as World War I, Fiennes is working with his two companions, Shola and Polly, played by Jaimin Hansu and Gemma Arterton, respectively, to protect the country from conflict. It's later revealed that a shadow organization led by a villain known only as the Shepherd has plans to see the war take full effect by planning the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Heinz and his son are able to protect the Archduke initially, but fail to prevent a second attempt on his life, and Britain is forced into all-out war. The Shepherd also has plans to force Russia out of the war, thereby dooming Britain to defeat. Fiennes and his team must work to stop the Russian mystic Grigory Rasputin, played very creepily by Rhys Ifans, who is pulling the strings in Russia and trying to convince the Tsar from entering the war. While this is all going on, the Shepherd also has a spy in the U.S. White House, blackmailing President Woodrow Wilson into preventing the U.S. from entering the war as well, essentially guaranteeing the British Empire's defeat. Fiennes and his team must race against time to stop the Shepherd and his evil organization in order to save the lives of millions. So that's pretty much the story in a nutshell. And of course, as usual, going to go into some spoiler territory, so I'm not gonna spoil the ending of it for you too much. Just going to kind of go over some things that I liked about the movie. One thing that I kind of want to do in this review that's going to be just a little bit different than what I've done in previous reviews is normally what I would do is I would discuss, some things that I liked about the movie and some things that I would change or that I just didn't agree with. So I'm still going to do that, but instead of having those be their own category, I think what I'm going to try to do is talk about different categories of the movie, such as the acting, the story, and the writing, and just kind of my thoughts on it, and anything that stuck out to me or anything that I maybe just didn't like or didn't agree with. So I'll start with the acting. So overall, and everyone in this film does a great job in their respective roles, and I do want to give particular props to Ralph Fiennes. He really seems to elevate this movie above a standard action-adventure movie, which is really what this is. I mean, it is a standard action-adventure movie. It's not really trying to be anything more than that. It's not trying to make any deep political point of view or anything like that. It's just trying to be a fun action film. But unlike others that can kind of come off as a little bit cheap and cheesy, this movie, thanks again, I think, to several performances, including Fiennes, I think is elevated to a level above that. Fiennes' role as an honorable gentleman and concerned, if somewhat overbearing father, really brings a lot of humanity to the film. The more films I see Fiennes in, honestly, the more I'm convinced that he really is a criminally underrated actor. I think he's to the point now where people kind of know who he is, but I still feel like he's one of those actors that, when people see him, they recognize him, but they don't know from where. And he's been in the industry for a long time. He's played such despicable villains, such as Amon Garth in Schindler's List, Lord Voldemort in the Harry Potter series, and Francis Dollarhide in Red Dragon. And he plays those roles just, amazingly. But he also can play, relatively good lighthearted roles, too. He was in the Grand Budapest Hotel, the Wes Anderson film, and he has amazing comedic timing in that movie. He's genuinely funny. And he's also in the movie Bruges. Again, he kind of plays kind of a villain in that movie too. But again, he has good comedic timing in there. And in this movie, he's such a likable hero that you can't really help but root for him. I mean, he has such amazing range as an actor, and I really hope more people come to recognize him in the future. He's definitely becoming one of my favorites for sure. Rhys Ifans as Rasputin is also another standout. In all honesty, I kind of didn't recognize him at first. I thought he was Peter Stormare for some reason. There's an eerie scene in the movie when they introduce his character formally at a party, and he kind of just floats into the room. And it's really haunting to watch. One, because he's accompanied by a really eerie musical score that plays while he comes in. But the fact that he's being led in by two women who are walking normally, really, the juxtaposition between that and him floating really kind of adds to it. I liked his character as Rasputin. I was hoping he was going to be in more of the film, but he was definitely entertaining to watch, the few scenes that we get out of him. Another one is, and again, to kind of spoil who the villain is, Matthew Good as the main antagonist, the Shepherd, was also a standout performance to me. For the most part of the movie, you don't really see a lot of his face. He's kind of in the shadows, almost kind of like Claw from the Inspector Gadget series. You kind of see the back of his head. He comes off as an almost silly James Bond-esque villain, but his demeanor is entertaining. He's the kind of villain that's fun to watch when he's in his element, and it really looks like Good is having fun with the role and eating up the scenes he's in. His accent kind of made me think of Scrooge McDuck for some reason. When he's belittling his minions, for some reason it made me think of Scrooge McDuck the way he sounded, so I kept thinking of DuckTales when watching this, which is perfectly fine with me. I don't know if anybody else out there kind of thought of that too, but that's just kind of a vibe that I got. So yeah, overall, as far as acting goes, everybody played their role very well. Nobody really stuck out to me as being too over the top, which I think you can kind of get in action films like these. I think it's pretty easy for actors to kind of oversell it a little bit, and I didn't get that from this movie at all. I think everyone did just enough to really make it believable and fun. But I just feel like some performances, in particular Fiennes, really I think help elevate this movie above what you would consider to be a standard action movie. So the next category is the story. So I'm not a historian, so I can't really speak to the accuracy of the historical events of this film. I know they do note several historical figures. For example, like, Franz Ferdinand and his assassination attempt. I know that this is really nothing new in Hollywood. The idea of using real historical figures in a fictional setting, I mean, that's been done before many times. And obviously, creative liberties were taken in this film for the sake of dramatization, so I totally get that. And I don't really think this movie is supposed to be going for historical accuracy. However, I do feel like this movie does manage to do it in a way that's not stupid or cliche, at least in my opinion. It's nothing groundbreaking by any means, but I liked it. It was fun, at the very least. The pacing, for me, was a little bit of an issue, though, with this film. At 131 minutes, this film is just a little over 2 hours long, and it does start to feel like it after a while. I do feel like some scenes could have been trimmed down a little bit for the sake of time. I mean, on the whole, I feel like it does flow relatively well, and I was entertained enough by it that I wasn't really squirming in my seat too much. But I would be lying if I said I didn't check my phone, every once in a while to see what time it was when watching this. It wasn't anything that ruined the experience for me. I just think this probably could have been a 90-minute movie and still been just as effective. There were just some scenes in here that felt like they went on just a little too long, but nothing, for me at least, that really detracted from the overall experience of watching the movie. The next category is writing, or the dialogue. And honestly, not a whole lot of negatives to say here. The writing and dialogue for this movie, they feel appropriate for the genre of the film. It's lighthearted for the most part, with, some clever quips thrown in occasionally. I love the back and forth that Ray Fiennes and his son in the movie have with each other, as well as Fiennes and Jaimin have. And also Gemma Arterton, she has some really great quips as her character in this movie, too. I kind of like how she's always kind of saving the guys with her well-placed shots that she has. She's kind of the marksman slash brains of the group, and so like she has like several scenes like where she kind of just comes in and just shoots a weapon out of somebody's hand, and it's kind of done for comic relief, but it's also kind of badass too in a way. So it's a good balance that they hit there. And yeah, in my opinion, each of the cast members, they deliver their lines very well, and sometimes it can be a little over the top in some scenes. I mean, overall, I think it works. And again, I think you kind of come to expect it in a movie like this. This isn't supposed to be this isn't a movie that's trying to win an Oscar for best performance or best feature film or something like that. This is just supposed to be a fun action film. To me, it almost kind of reminds me of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I'll admit, that movie gets a lot of hate, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. I think it's better than people give it credit for. Yeah, it's a dumb action film, but I think it's enjoyably dumb. I enjoy it quite a bit. I have it on DVD, and I'd be lying if I say I haven't watched it, in the last couple of years. Like, I watch it every once in a while. I come back to it. It's just a fun movie I like to watch. So yeah. So my overall thoughts, this movie isn't really deep or particularly thought-provoking, but it's not really supposed to be. What it is supposed to be, it does its job very well, which is basically just being a fun action movie. It's an entertaining action-adventure film with some really cool fight scenes and surprising, heartfelt performances from several of the cast members. I love a good action flick every now and then, and this is definitely a cut above the rest, in my opinion. Plus, it also sets up for future installments, which I believe they have discussed that they are planning to do at least one sequel to this. And honestly, I'm genuinely interested to see where this list of characters goes, and I want to see these people in more movies like this. So yeah, I would recommend this film to anyone looking for a fun movie that doesn't try to beat you over the head with any messages or anything like that. It's just here to be fun and to entertain you, and in my opinion, it does that very well. So I would say give it a view and let me know your thoughts. So yeah, pretty quick review on that movie. Not a lot to say really, just that I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. So kind of a shorter review than usual. But I did also want to note too that I saw that the trailer for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney Plus did premiere this week, or release this week. So I got to check that out, and man, I got to admit, I did watch the Mandalorian show, and I did really enjoy it a lot, but I've kind of fallen out of Star Wars. Ever since the the sequel trilogy came out, I really have not had much interest in it. I did not see all of Rise of Skywalker. I saw bits and pieces of it, but I did watch The Force Awakens as well as The Last Jedi. I would definitely say of the three, that at least from what I've seen so far, The Force Awakens seems to be the best, even if it is basically a remake of A New Hope. And The Last Jedi was disappointing to me, for sure. I was really hoping to get more out of that movie, particularly from Mark Hamill's return as Luke Skywalker. So that was disappointing to see. But, and then Rise of Skywalker, of course, I read all the reviews about it. A lot of my friends pretty much hated it. I saw clips of it on YouTube, and I know the story, I know the plot, I know everything that happens, and I kind of I know enough that I don't really need to see that movie. I mean, maybe if it's ever on Disney Plus at some point, which I think it is right now, maybe I'll check it out. I'm not really sure. But anyways, to not get too sidetracked, I've kind of fallen out of Star Wars the last few years. It's not really something that really interests me that much anymore. But I got to admit, this trailer might rekindle that interest that I have. One huge Ewan McGregor fan, I've always have been, and it was really cool to see him reprising his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm not going to lie, that gave me goosebumps. Seeing him in his Jedi robes, with his hair grown out and that beard that he had, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, just looking like his old Jedi self is really cool. Also, too, in the trailer, they actually play the song "Duel of the Fates." So that was just so fucking cool to hear. I remember that from the very first time he fights Darth Maul in Phantom Menace. I think that was the song that they played during that fight scene. That was so cool. So that brought back a lot of nostalgic feelings for me. I mean, I kind of feel like those two things alone make me want to watch this show. I've also been hearing that Hayden Christensen will be reprising his role as Anakin Skywalker in this. So from what I could tell, it looks like in an interview with Ewan McGregor, he states that Anakin Skywalker is going to be, much darker, and you're going to see a much more powerful, vicious version of him in the show, which I can't wait to see that. From what I can tell, it sounds like this is, and from the trailer too, it looks like the movie or the show is mostly going to be about Obi-Wan essentially watching over Luke Skywalker as he grows up on Tatooine, and then Vader and the Sith are basically trying to find Obi-Wan. And so it looks like that's going to be the story that it's going to follow. So definitely curious to see that. I think this is a show that a lot of fans have been wanting for a very long time. We've been wanting to see an Obi-Wan spinoff. So fans, I think, will be excited to finally get this. Hopefully it's a good show. I mean, it definitely looks like it. It looks like it's going to be interesting. To be honest, I mean, I'm excited to see this show, and I'll definitely check it out when it comes out. I'd be lying, though, if I said I wasn't a little bit tired of Star Wars shows and movies. I do kind of wish that they would try to do something new in Star Wars. It's such a big, no pun intended, it's such a big universe that I feel like there is an endless possibility of directions they could take it in. It'd be kind of cool if they could have a movie, kind of like another movie, kind of like Rogue One, where we don't really see any Jedi, where we kind of get to explore maybe another part of the Star Wars universe that maybe hasn't been explored yet. I was kind of hoping they were going to do that with Mandalorian, but then they do kind of bring in the Jedi a little bit into that show. Not to get too much into that. Not a big role in there, but it would be kind of cool if they could just go into different directions in the Star Wars universe and kind of show us something completely new that we haven't seen before. I like the Jedi stuff, don't get me wrong. I like the Force stuff, and that is kind of the biggest draw of the Star Wars universe, but I just feel like they have so much material they could work with and just so much they could build upon. So I'd like to see more of that from the universe, but I think this looks really good and this looks promising. So I'll definitely give this the benefit of the doubt and check it out when it comes out for sure. And then also, kind of as a side note, I saw that Joel Edgerton is also in the trailer, so that's going to be interesting as well. Huge Joel Edgerton fan, so I'm excited to see him in this movie or the show. I keep saying movie, show. So it looks like it's going to be a limited series on Disney Plus. So I assume there's probably not going to be. If there is going to be more than one season, I can't imagine there's going to be 2 or 3. I almost dropped my phone. I can't imagine it's going to be much more than that. So I'm guessing this might be something kind of like what Midnight Mass was, where it's just kind of maybe like a one-shot deal, which I'm okay with. If it's almost kind of like a TV, like a movie miniseries, that would be cool too. I'm assuming since you have such a big name actor like Ewan McGregor in it that it's going to be a pretty high budget film. I haven't checked out the budget for it yet. I'll have to look that up. But it seems like the budgets for TV shows anymore, especially when you're talking like Disney Plus and stuff and Amazon with the freaking Lord of the Rings series, it's like TV budgets are just getting absurd. Like I can't remember what the exact budget is for the Lord of the Rings series for Amazon, but I think the first season is going to have like each episode's going to have like the budget of basically a blockbuster movie or something like that, like a couple $100 million, which is insane for a show. Couldn't even imagine that back when I was like, in high school, a show having a budget like that. That's absurd. Hell, even a movie having a budget like that would be absurd. So, but anyways, yeah, I'll be looking for this one for sure. Definitely going to check this out. I did, it's kind of funny. I did actually cancel my Disney Plus subscription, so this might actually be the thing that brings me back to it. There's other shows on Disney Plus that I probably should watch, but honestly, like after Mandalorian, I kind of lost interest a little bit. So, but this might be the thing that kind of brings me back around. So, for right now, I'm actually watching a lot of Apple TV just because I got like a promotional deal when I got my new phone. And this is not a plug for Apple by any means, but I got an iPhone 13 recently, so they just kind of offered me like 3 months of Apple TV for free. So I've been kind of watching shows on there, just binge watching basically. Binge watching Ted Lasso. Might do a review of that show as well. So, all right, well, that's going to conclude this episode. Kind of a shorter episode than usual. So once again, I am on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. Later.